This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly podcast.
Podcasting from the St. Clair studio in the Diocese of Arlington, welcome to the Walk Humbly podcast. I'm Diana Snyder, Deputy Director of Communications, sitting in for Billy Atwell, who is away on paternity leave, and your co-host for this podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, then you are benefiting from the generosity of those who have given to the Bishop's Lenten Appeal. The BLA supports many ministries throughout the diocese, including the Communications Office, thanks to those who've made this possible. If you haven't already, please make sure you rate this podcast and write a review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or Overcast. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe and ring the bell. Sign up for our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org. Follow Bishop Burbidge on Twitter, more than 24,000 already do, at Bishop Burbidge, where you can read a short reflection on the daily gospel. You can also follow the diocese on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Send your questions to us. Email info@arlingtondiocese.org or send your message via social media. I welcome your host, Bishop Burbidge.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you for sitting in the co-host chair here. And thanks for mentioning Billy and being on paternity leave. So I want to congratulate Billy Atwell and his wife Katie on the birth of their fourth child. So Billy's taking some well-deserved time to be at home with his family and taking care of their beautiful new daughter, who I just met in real time yesterday, Claire Francesca, who was born February 27th. Weighing 6 pounds, 7 ounces. And Claire joins Billy and Katie's other children, Liam and Anna Kate and Angelina. So asking God's blessings upon all of them.
Just want to know if you got to hold her.
I did. I'm a little nervous holding the baby's that tiny, but I did it.
All right. Well, we can't wait to meet her here in the office. Bishop, for some of us, it's hard to believe that today is the 10th anniversary of Pope Francis's election to the papacy. A man from the ends of the earth, as he said that night. Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio of Argentina was elected to the chair of St. Peter, becoming the 266th Pope. Bishop, you'll be celebrating Mass at the Cathedral today for this anniversary. So what are your thoughts about that historic day and about Pope Francis?
Well, yeah, it is. It's so hard to believe that it was 10 years ago. Absolutely incredible. And we all remember that day. We waited anxiously to see who our new Pope would be. And out came that, as you mentioned, someone from Latin America, the soon-to-be Pope Francis, as he announced that day. And he was surprised. He was very close to retiring and kind of had his life sort of mapped out there, going to the conclave and thinking he would be retiring and continue to serve the Lord and new transition. But he never anticipated what the Holy Spirit had in mind. But he said yes, as he has done throughout his priesthood, to God's will. Yeah. And I think that's a reminder to all of us, is that God has a plan for each of us. It's much bigger than we can anticipate or expect. But it's always, as we know, it's always saying yes to God's will, that we do find our joy and our growth in holiness. That's the path for sanctification that God has for us. It was a surprise to our Holy Father, but ever since that day, he has served the church with such zeal and dedication, making himself so available to God's people throughout the world in his many, many trips. He has been a staunch defender of life, the sacredness of all human life, calling to mind the dignity and respect we owe to every person as a child of God, reminding us of being stewards, good stewards of God's creation and God's many blessings. You know, some of the words I think of when I think of all that Pope Francis has preached and written about these past 10 years. The first is joy. One of his first encyclicals, The Joy of the Gospel. Knowing that joy that we all seek, but genuine joy is only found in relationship with Jesus. And the best way to evangelize is to radiate joy to others. Why would anyone want to follow Christ if they don't see our joy in doing so? He talks about being a missionary disciple. It's a fascinating concept. all of us are called to be missionaries. In other words, just don't stay where we're comfortable. Go out, as he would say, to the margins, where people in our own families, circle of friends who have wandered away from the church, from the Lord, just knock. Just gently invite them back home, maybe for Easter this year. We think of his word, his use of accompaniment, that we're all in this earthly journey together, but we have the same goal, to get to heaven. Mm-hmm. So we should accompany one another, encourage each other in faith, listen and respect to one another. And his simplicity, right? He took the name St. Francis after Francis of Assisi, his simple way, his humble way of living, as a reminder that we don't need all the things we're accumulating. In fact, they're given to us to be shared with the poor and the homeless and the hungry, and those who need us the most. And so I think we honor him by living as faithfully as possible to the truth and joy of the gospel. But also, I think, what can we do for our Holy Father on the 10th anniversary? Remember what he did at the end of his blessing on that day he was announced to the world? He just bowed, mm-hmm. and he said, "Please pray for me."
Right.
So let's promise, everyone. Let's promise to pray daily for Pope Francis, for his health, his well-being, and his protection.
Yes, absolutely. Bishop, earlier this month and in late February, you celebrated the Rite of Election at the Cathedral of St. Thomas More and also in Ashburn at St. Teresa for men and women who will enter the church at Easter. A total of 164 adults or catechumens from 39 parishes participated in this rite. These adults are now the elect, and they'll be baptized at Easter and will receive the sacraments of initiation. Can you talk about this event in the life of the church and what it means to those who are participating?
Yes, and you mentioned the 164 who formally participate in the Rite of Election, but there are others throughout our parishes. So many people will be coming into on the faith at Easter. For them, in Easter, like no other, mm-hmm. As they are baptized, and it's just and make the profession of faith. It's just so beautiful, just seeing being with the people. We call them now the elect, because that's what happened on that sacred day. And I always look out and, I just say, boy, if I could hear your stories, like, how is it that now, at this moment in your life, that you now are entering into the one initiation to the one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church? And the stories would vary remarkably from one person to another, and who inspired them, and how the life's events changed for them, and how they embraced this invitation at this moment in time. But I reminded them what they all had in common, even though their stories are so different, is that it's God who called them. He calls them the elect. He calls them his chosen ones. And with his amazing grace, they've embraced that call. So we continue to support the elect as they make this journey to Easter through our own example, and especially through our prayer. So please, everyone, join together in praying for the elect of our diocese.
Absolutely. My husband entered the church that way, so I remember it very well.
Sure,
yeah.
Exactly.
Bishop, you just returned from your yearly visit to St. Charles Borromeo Seminary in Philadelphia, where you visited with the seminarians in formation for the priesthood from our diocese. And then later this week, you'll be traveling up to Emmitsburg, Maryland, where you'll be visiting our seminarians at Mount St. Mary's Seminary. I know you look forward to these visits every day, so could you talk a little bit about why you do them and what you hope to find?
Sure. Well, we don't have our own seminary in the diocese. Most dioceses don't. So you rely, the bishop is the chief formator of the seminarians, but he has to rely on solid seminaries training and forming our future priests on the human and intellectual and spiritual and pastoral level. And thank God we are so blessed to have such solid seminaries right nearby. St. John Paul II Seminary in Washington, where our college seminarians are formed, participate in priestly formation and attend Catholic University of America. Mm-hmm. And then for our seminarians who are in theology, we have 3 in Rome, the North American College, and the others, we have 48 seminarians right now.
That's so awesome.
Most of them are at St. Charles Borromeo, my alma mater in Philadelphia, and Mount St. Mary's Seminary. And so as the chief formator, I keep in contact with our seminarians as frequently as possible, because God willing, I will one day be ordaining them. And so I have to know them. And so we have a good, solid relationship, transparency. But nothing replaces being one-on-one at the seminary with them. So I visit with them, pray with them, celebrate Mass for them, but also have like a half-hour one-on-one interview with them just to see how they're doing. And God bless our seminarians. They're very transparent. They tell me what's going well, tell me where the challenges are, and maybe with the Holy Spirit's help, I can guide them a little bit. But as I always say, when I visit our seminarians, I'm so proud of them, because just last week when I was in St. Charles Seminary, I can't tell you the number of priests on the faculty, lay teachers, and staff who stopped me and just said, Bishop, the seminarians from Arlington, they stand out. They're a gift. They're the first ones to volunteer. They're thankful. They don't complain. So I was very, very proud of them. And I really look at our seminarians through the goodness of God, the prayers of our people, and just think that our diocese just has such a bright future with so many wonderful priests in training. And so thank you, everyone. Thanks for praying for vocations, but thanks for praying daily for our seminarians, that God grants them perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely. Bishop, on Saturday, you participated in a special conference at Nativity Catholic Church in Burke. The topic for the conference, which was sponsored by the Peace and Justice Commission, was very weighty, concerning topic, human trafficking. It explored two kinds of trafficking, both commercial sex trafficking and labor trafficking. The presenter was Bill Wolf, who's a former Fairfax County police officer who worked for the federal government on this issue, and then went on to found the Anti-Trafficking International and Just Ask Prevention Project. Bill Wolf summed up his presentation by saying, people think of human trafficking as kids being kidnapped, kids disappearing, but 90% of the kids being trafficked live at home, sleep in their own beds, and go to school every day. Bishop, what were your impressions from this conference?
Well, Bill is such a powerful speaker who really brings this very horrific evil, puts in front of us, and it's very unsettling, because it's not far away. It's right in our own communities, and like Bill said, there was a time in life where you shut the door, you locked it, and you shut the windows, and you kept the bad people from entering. You can't do that anymore, because why? The technology, the phone. Mm-hmm. And that's how most people, like you said, are being trafficked, live at home and sleep in their own beds, and it's the engagement begins on the phone. And the people who are involved in this human trafficking, they know where their vulnerabilities are. They follow the social media and things like that, and they know where to attack, in a sense. And many times, all the time, in a sense, it's those who are very, very innocent. But Bill made it very clear. This is a human respect life issue, right? It's the dignity of the human person just being horrifically violated. And I was shocked, Diana, to learn that there are 50 million victims of human trafficking, modern day slavery, he called it, in the world. And that the United States is the third highest country of origin of victims. The United States. It is happening right here in Northern Virginia. 50% of those people who are forced into commercial sex are under the age of 18. The perpetrators are master manipulators. That's what they are, manipulators. And they look for vulnerable victims, often those who are struggling with self-esteem. And they see it. They see it on the social media. They see it, like, for example, when they are in a restaurant or working there, and they can see maybe that young person who's, maybe is going through something, and they promise them something that's not real, and lure them into this. And so I'm really gratified we're working to teach our students about this issue in all our schools through our Office of Child Protection and Safety. But parents, you have to be extremely vigilant, Again, this is a reality right in our midst. Most of it is done through the social media, and they attack our young people who seem like they're doing fine, but maybe are a little dealing with a little anxiety, a little low self-esteem. And these perpetrators know where to go. So be vigilant, learn more about this issue.
Absolutely. And to learn more, you can go to the justaskprevention.org. All right. So, Bishop, it was just a year ago that the eyes of the world were riveted on Eastern Europe when Russian forces invaded their neighbor, Ukraine. It's a former member of the Soviet bloc, but it's now an independent country. So can you talk about what that event has meant for so many people in that country and in Russia and around the world?
Yeah, it's so sad, isn't it, just to think this has been going on for 1 year? And, that's the thing with evil, though, and this is evil. This is unnecessary, and it's a loss of lives every day. Loss of property, loss of the basic necessities of life, causing such hardship each and every day. It is just so evil. And the problem is that sometimes with evil, we grow a little numb to waking up every day and thinking of this reality. When we first saw it, a year ago, of course, we were horrified. That this invasion was taking place, this violence, this war was taking place, but it's happening every day. And so our sense of urgency in praying for the end of this war and for it to cease immediately should be at the top of our prayer list every day. There are so many people just suffering and the innocent loss of lives. We were welcomed one of the auxiliary bishops from the Ukraine to our diocese about a month ago, and spoke at St. Joseph's Parish in Hernan, and I was able to meet with him one-on-one. And when you sit across from someone who is witnessing this every day, whose people he loves and cherishes have been killed, who have lost everything. It is just so heartbreaking. Oh, and he just begged. He said, Bishop, please have your people. Please pray. We appreciate all the relief we're having and people trying to help us, but we need prayers. This has to end. So it's a powerful reminder, that this continues and that we are called to be prayerful in asking the God of peace to bring the end to this war.
Yes, absolutely. We will continue to pray for them. Bishop, as you know, this Friday is the third week of Lent, and it corresponds with St. Patrick's Day. Now, you announced earlier this month that you have granted a dispensation for the obligation of abstinence from meat on this day, this coming Friday, March 17th. Now, I've heard the expression that everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day, and the faithful can still have a feast day and celebrate with their corned beef and cabbage. But in all seriousness, can you talk about what this means? And have you ever done a dispensation like this for any other feast days that fall on
We have
Fridays?
done it for a good St. Joseph also at some point.
Oh, okay. So,
and it is a dispensation. When I was asked to consider that, the first thing I thought of was my father, who's Irish. Burbidge is actually an Irish name, and he was very Irish. I used to march with him in the St. Patrick's Day parade. And I'm thinking, if I don't grant this dispensation, he may disown me. He's up in heaven, but he might disown me. So it is Cardinal Gregory, Archbishop Laurie, most of us in the region have granted this dispensation. And it is. I mean, it's St. Patrick's Day has taken on this sense of festivity, which brings people together. I was just yesterday at the Basilica of St. Mary's for Irish hoolie and great dancing and, like you say, some of the food and corned beef and cabbage and ham and things. It's good. It brings people together. It brings joy, and it was so nice to see so many young families there. And that will happen again on Friday. So that's the reason that we granted the dispensation. But I do remind everyone in my official statement that if you are taking advantage of that dispensation, not everyone is, but if you are, you're also strongly encouraged to do a work of charity, an exercise of piety, or a comparable penance on some other occasion during that third week of Lent.
Right.
So
it still is Lent.
Yes, it's still Lent. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so Bishop, as we wind up here, I know that this is your favorite time of year because of March Madness coming up. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at the brackets. So it's time, we're going to put you on the spot here. Do you have any observations going into the tournament? And of course, we need to see or hear who your Final Four are.
Yeah, no, it's great. March Madness. It's like after the Super Bowl, it's kind of like, for me, I'm a sports fan. The sports I like are kind of like on hold for a little bit. But March Madness is like, here we go. It's a great tournament, and some of the excitement of March Madness is it's 64 teams start, I think, and it's one and done. Like, you lose one game, you're done. And there's only one team standing at the end. So I say, thank God that's not the way in our spiritual lives, one and done. Like, the good Lord allows us to stumble and fall, but is there to pick us up so that we can begin anew. And that's a great message of Lent, that if we stumble and fall, we're not done. Our God is a God of mercy and a God of love. He'll pick us up. He always lets us begin anew. But the sporting event is fun. It's enjoyment. And so, I've done some research and maybe sought some advice here and there to come up with my Final Four. So I'll be happy to share my prediction, but I just encourage everyone, please don't rely on them. So for the men's bracket, I have going to the Final Four Alabama and Duke on one side. So I think Duke is coming on really strong at the right time. So it's I keep your eye on Duke. And then on the other side, Texas and Gonzaga. And Gonzaga is kind of like a surprise pick because I have them beating Kansas, who many people have winning the whole thing. So they're my Final Four. On the women's side, I thought it was a little bit easier. We had South Carolina and Iowa. And I have to put Villanova in there, my alma mater there. Yeah. But Villanova women are playing really well at the right time. They're like Duke on the men's side. They're getting hot at the right time. And I always think you have to include UConn there too. So they're my picks on the women's bracket. So.
Okay. Good to know. We're going to watch.
Yeah, don't rely. This is a very unreliable source.
Okay, so Bishop, one final basketball note, and then if you can take us out with your blessing. We understand that within the Burbidge family, there is a state basketball champion.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. My brother, Fran, is a coach at Westtown in girls basketball, varsity basketball. And for the second year in a row, took them to the state championship. So really happy for Coach Fran there. Thanks. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for Diana. Thank you for co-hosting today. You did a great job, and we appreciate all that you're doing. And again, wishing Billy and Katie and Claire and their beautiful children many blessings. And everyone, we are continuing this Lenten journey. We're recording this on the third week of Lent. And if you got off to a great start and maybe has fallen off a little bit, and now that we're at the third week, regroup. Again, take Lent day by day, and it's never too late saying, well, you know what, I've maybe have kind of not living those Lenten practices or promises I made would be prayer and fasting, almsgiving, what we gave up for Lent. But you know what? It's the third week. God lets us start over and get on track so that we really enjoy and are prepared to celebrate the glory of Easter. And praying for God's abundant blessings upon all of you so that we may continue to walk humbly with our God. Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where I offer gospel reflections each morning and share photos and updates of what is going on in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, and inspirational content by subscribing to our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org.